You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
We are continuing our Christmas baking series. We've been talking cookies. Today we get
something very fancy.
Very fancy and not necessarily a cookie, but I think it's kind of sweet too. We'll get to that in just a moment. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting The Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
Joining us today, the Reverend William Cwirla. Pastor Cwirla, now retired and enjoying retirement life and still doing baking and all kinds of fun stuff. I bet still doing some woodworking too. Pastor Cwirla, welcome back to The Coffee Hour.
Hey, great to be back. Blessed Advent to you guys.
Thank you to you as well. And congratulations on retirement life now too. Enjoying retirement. What's that?
I'm still in transition, so you're going to have to ask me in a while. It's you don't realize how on call your body is until you're not on call anymore, and I actually answer the phone, which I did when you called, I just used to leave the phone, go to message so you can kind of filter and see what it is and I actually pick up the phone. So but it is an adjustment. It isn't. I have to say, of all the things, I think I miss the preaching and the liturgies the most because I'm not conducting it. So the Lord is teaching me the discipline of receiving, which is very difficult. Preachers have a hard time sitting and listening to sermons. We're accustomed to hearing preaching in our own voice, but it's good. It's good for me, and I think it's just good in general. So. Yes, I'm sitting in silence and learning.
Sounds kind of great. And I know you're doing some baking still.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of we're gonna like rewind through history a little bit. What was baking like around the Christmas holiday when you were a kid?
Oh, wow. I have a German mother, and Germans own Christmas baking. I don't care what anybody says. I know we all have our traditions, everything from, Mexican grandmothers, and they're all great cooks, they're all great bakers, but when it comes to Christmas baking, the Germans own it, and so, yeah, baking started pretty much in early December and continued unabated into the new year. Mom had probably, I would guess, probably about 20 varieties of cookies. She's an excellent cookie maker, and for her, cookies, and she still talks about today, cookies need to be dried out, not baked to a crisp. She didn't like crunchy cookies. She liked those, the cookies that just kind of disintegrated when you bit into them. And so she had that nailed, that perfect doneness. So yeah, I remember vast collections of cookies and brownies. And the fun thing was Mom would bake them in advance, put them into tins, and then tuck them in our very cool basement. Of course, my brother and I knew all the hiding places. And so we would kind of like get in there. And the trick was to try to remove one or two cookies without looking like they've been disturbed, But you can only do that for so many days. And after a while, the blinds coming down. I remember one time we just rated it just way too heavy. Boy, was Mom mad. She was, we had ways. She put it under lock and key. We'd find the key to the lock. And it was an amazing. That's kind of part of the whole family tradition for me is that stealing Christmas cookies. So, yeah. And then, of course, Mom made her Christmas Stollen, not in the traditional way. She had kind of a cheater's Stollen, but and I didn't like it because I don't like candied fruit. Those rubberized kids, they're horrible. Those are just terrible. But she also made kind of a challah, which was basically the same thing without the candied fruit, which I really like. So yeah, fond memories of all those carbs.
Now, who developed? How did you develop a love for baking? Because I know we've talked with you a couple of times about your enjoyment of baking.
Well, you've got to be clear here. When it comes to cookies and pies and cakes, that's my wife's domain.
Okay.
And so my wife Karen does all the cookies, pies, and cakes. And she does a nice job at Christmas. She kind of does it's a metered sort of Christmas bake. And a lot of her cookie recipes, you can freeze the dough, and it's actually better that way when you do. So, we get these little mini batches that come out at regular intervals, which is nice. And and so put together little plates to give to people at church or to give to shut-ins or give to the neighbors. So but if it has yeast, then it's in my domain. So I do the yeasted things pretty much, and so yeasted breads and whatnot. That's where I come in, and I've been doing it ever since I moved out of the house and didn't have access to Mom's baking. And, I started making Mom's egg bread, her challah, and kind of worked out from there. But about 8 or 9 years ago, I took up bread making more seriously and, began to kind of study it and talk to people who knew a lot about it. And then I got into sourdoughs and that kind of thing and haven't looked back since. So that's really my love is sourdoughs and that kind of thing. There are yeasted holiday bread. Holidays, whether they be whether it be for Easter or Christmas, it's always an excuse to amp up the richness. Normally my breads are considered they're lean bread, so it's just flour, salt, water, and yeast. But get around the holidays, that's where the butter, and the milk and all the flavors come in. So it's kind of fun because breads take on a much more interesting and diverse flavor.
Now you have a specific one, the Epiphany Star Bread, and if you Google this, it's a beautiful looking bread. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, I think the original recipe I got from King Arthur Flour. That's a great resource for recipes that work consistently, and you can actually toggle whether you want things in weight, grams, or ounces, or everything. So they're very smart websites and really good recipes. But, the star, which often factors into Christmas narratives, is really an Epiphany phenomenon. There was no star in Bethlehem. There were shepherds and angels and all that, but not Christmas night. But the star comes later, and that's the guiding star for the Magi. They visit the child not in the manger, but a house, and, so the whole but everything gets kind of squished together, which is okay. You want to just get everything in there. And so the star is often associated with Christmas. You have them on Christmas trees, the topper star. And so a lot of cultures have a star bread. And I don't know the origin of this one, but it's really nice. It's your kind of standard enriched bread, a lot of egg and butter and sugar in it. And so it's a sweet yeasted dough that you make into kind of a layered thing. I can't remember. No, you don't use the springform pan. You just roll it out, but you make layers, and in between the layers you put either jam or kind of a sweet cream cheese kind of filling, and then you cut these arms, and then give the arms like a full twist, and so the twist then creates this really nice pattern when the layers, kind of like a kranz cake. It creates this really nice sort of layered, almost a pastry sort of look. So it's a multi-legged star with a really beautiful center when it's done right. Mine never quite come out right. Mine kind of come out like sort of a Van Gogh star. It would not make it as a showstopper on the Great British Baking Show, I can assure you. But it is delicious and very impressive. So you have a nice eggy yeasted bread, and raspberry jam with lots of additional lemon zest works really nicely in there. It looks very pretty. Or you can go the way of sweetened cream cheese kind of concoction, custard.
So it's more of a sweet type bread. Do you top it with anything, or how do you serve it?
It needs no topping, I agree.
Yeah.
Although I think some recipes do drizzle an icing, or some dusted with powdered sugar. That looks nice too. But seriously, it really doesn't need anything. And I think if I remember, before you bake it, you brush it with butter. So that just in case there's not enough butter in the dough.
Of course you do, yeah.
Butter on the top, and that gives a nice brown, nice brown on top. It's very, very beautiful. It leaves a big impression, when you bring it to church, potlucks and Christmas dinners and whatnot. You bring one of those in, and that gets a lot of oohs and ahs. If oohs and ahs are what you are after, I don't know. I gotta on that topic. When you look at a lot of bread books like Peter Reinhardt or Jeff Hamelman or what, they tend to make kind of a basic dough for holiday breads from which come all the holiday breads. So they kind of all trace themselves back to basically like a sweet brioche kind of dough. So it's very buttery, often has a lot of egg, and then additional egg yolk in it, and sugar or honey or that kind of thing. One of my favorites is the Italian panettone. That's a yeasted holiday bread too, and that thing's made really tall. It's made in a special form, but the thing is, like a foot tall, and very light, not a dense bread. It's very, very light. Goes great with espresso, of course.
Of course. We have about a minute-ish left. Do you have any advice for aspiring holiday bread makers? You are the expert we have on for this.
Oh, okay. Well, if you are a bread maker and you're accustomed to making yeasted breads, the thing you have to remember is all these additives, whether they be butter, eggs, excessive sugar, or honey in particular, these things tend to retard yeast action. So you kind of have to be aware that a lot of the recipes have more yeast than you are accustomed to adding. And generally, sourdoughs don't work in this approach because the sourdough yeast is much slower action. But all those additives that make the bread so wonderfully delicious and so enriched also retard yeast action. So give it time, give it a nice warm place, be patient, and it'll work. It'll work.
So what you're saying is this is a good thing to do in retirement when you have time to relax and let the dough rise.
Give it time. The thing about yeasted breads is that this is not for the person in a hurry. A lot of times I have other things running. I set a reminder timer so I don't forget its existence, and you come back to it a couple hours and see where it's going. But yeah, it does take time.
Sounds fantastic. The Epiphany Star Bread. Pastor Cwirla, thanks so much for spending some time with us during this season and sharing your wonderful baking story with us.
Well, blessed Advent and upcoming Christmas to you guys, and happy baking.
To you as well. You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support The Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.